Hi, it's Josh from BrightTALK. I'm here with Richard Turner, EMEA President at FireEye. Richard, thank you for joining us.
Hi Josh, good to see you again.
So one of the key things that's been in the media recently is these attacks that keep happening on financial houses such as the Bank of Bangladesh. Is there a reason they're such kind of key targets, they're such juicy targets for the hackers?
Yeah, well if you think about crime and financial crime in particular, banks and organizations that hold money or instruments of money have been targets of crime for as long as crime's existed, and as Willie Sutton says, why do banks get targeted? It's because that's where the money is. So, and our data would tend to suggest that if you're a financial institution, you're probably one of the most targeted organizations of any, that exist anywhere in the planet.
Do you think there's anything the banks can be doing to better protect themselves?
Well, my experience would tend to suggest that the banks do a really good job anyway. In some of these cases, we just don't give the attackers enough credit. But it just goes to prove that no matter how good you are, the threat surface is large. To break in, you only need to be lucky once. And you've got to be continuously vigilant. You've got to be looking at, who are the groups that are likely to target me? What are they likely to be doing? And what's the earliest possible evidence that I can get of their activity to minimize the risk and then minimize the impact of a successful attack?
So you touched on the attackers themselves. Where do you think the kind of main areas you're seeing where these attackers are coming from? Is it lone wolves? Is it organized crime? Is it kind of lucky chances?
Really, like beauty, cybersecurity is very much in the eye of the beholder. What kind of business am I in? What kind of group might be targeting me? What kind of techniques would they use? And this is why cyber intelligence is becoming so important, because most organizations can't afford to spend the money to be good enough to detect and protect themselves against every theoretical threat, and instead they can use intelligence to direct their investment at the threats that are most likely to impact them, with the groups that are most likely to do it, with the techniques that they're most likely to use.
So Rich, we've talked a little bit about the private sector. What about the public sector? Are there any kind of trends you're seeing within critical infrastructure?
Well, the first thing to point out is that, as we've, I think, sort of illustrated through our M-Trends reports, government and the public sector generally are consistently among the most targeted and attacked organizations of all. Perhaps it's no surprise when you kind of come to understand, why organizations might target another nation state. Where we see tensions between nations build in the real world, the cyber tensions normally, are heightened as well. Governments around the world have always sought to gather intelligence on their adversaries, their friends and their partners. And the information is now digital, the communications are electronic, and we should expect to see that kind of activity for different reasons, depending upon the nation state that's perpetrating the crime. But we should continue to expect to see state-on-state activity. As cyber becomes a more credible theater of war, if you think about, being able to switch off the news, post and drive your own propaganda, interrupt energy supply, those sorts of things, they come into, the spectrum of targets that a nation state might like to identify and be able to impact as they develop not just their defensive cyber strategies, but as they develop their offensive cyber strategies, as well.
And as you're in your role at FireEye, are you seeing any really exciting trends that are kind of gripping the cybersecurity industry at the moment that you're particularly excited by?
Exciting trends. I'm not sure if everybody finds this one exciting, but I'm really excited about this sort of next phase of evolution in the cybersecurity industry. We've gone through a very long period of kind of best-of-breed products, and I think the market's slowly starting to realize that security is kind of mission critical for them. It's typically not a core competence, and just buying products probably doesn't help them very much. And I think that's evidenced by the vast sums of money that get spent on security today, and the ongoing headlines of organizations being breached seemingly very readily. And I'm excited because I think businesses are starting to realize that it's not about products, it's actually about a solution. You probably don't have enough money to be good enough at all the things that you need to protect, so you have to have intelligence to allow you to make investments that are proportional to the risk, that protects you from the likely threats, and creates a stronger ROI for your security investments. And I think that makes it very exciting for me and a company like FireEye that has investments in all of those areas.
It always comes back to intelligence.
Well, when it really boils down to it, it's we've gone through a sort of a technology-led era for security, and people are now starting to realize, as I said earlier, a certain type of company might need to be mindful of a nation state. Another might need to be mindful of organized crime. Another might need to be mindful, of a hacktivist group and a particular type of techniques. And the only way of really profiling that is by understanding, what your threat profile looks like through intelligence.
Rich, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's good to see you again. Thank you very much.
We're at Infosecurity all week, so head to BrightTALK.com for more cybersecurity insights.